So today I've got a few things going, but we're gonna go ahead and do a couple of AR builds, starting with our lowers. So I'm gonna try to get a video as best as we can. So we got our parts kit here, and you can see all the different parts that I got, and I keep them in this magnetic tray, just so it kind of holds everything. And they're pretty much somewhat separated in there. A few of them roll around. It's harder than magnets. They like to shoot around. So we're gonna go ahead and get rolling here. We're gonna use an Anderson lower, if you can see that right here right now. So that's what we're gonna use, and I don't have the uppers with me right this second. I'll go up and grab them in a few minutes when we get going, but I'll do my best to try to keep it so that we can kind of see what we're doing here. I don't know how this is gonna come out, but I'm thinking we can probably get things a touch closer, but I'll move it around and see where we're going. So first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna put in that front pivot pin, and that's kind of a hard deal. So you're gonna take the spring there, and if you can see the spring, there's two of them that are almost the same. We're gonna go ahead and drop that in. All right. And then we're going to take the little detent here, and if you can see that detent, just a small little thing right there. We're going to go ahead and set that in, but the key to this is to not let it fly away on you, and you will lose the spring and everything. So if you don't have it where everything's nice and neat, you know, you'll be buying an extra parts kit so that you have these parts that you need to do this. You can see I got that punch in there. So basically what we're going to do is I'm going to take that little detent, I just set it back in there. I'm going to stick that down there. Now, if you're like me and you have fat fingers and it makes life a touch harder in the rear. So if you can see, I can grab it with a pair of pliers here and set it down in. And what I want to do with my punch or whatever I'm using is just get that right in there. So you can see how, if you can see that, let me get the camera here. So I've got the punch just sitting on there. So that's going to pull the pin, hold that pin down and the spring down. So all we're going to do is I'm going to take this takedown pin, if you can see that, and I'm just going to follow my punch in with it. And when I do that, we're going to hold that detent and spring down, and it's just going to follow it through like so. And that just follow it right through. And you want to make sure you keep that flat part because it does have a little indent in there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the mag catch, and we're going to set that down through there. So the mag catch right here, you're just going to take and we're going to set it right in there. All right. We're going to flip it over, holding on to it, and you can see where the bolt's sticking through there. Right there, if you can see that. So then we're going to take the spring, put that on there, and then we're going to take the button, and you can see the spring in there, and then we're going to take the button. You want to make sure the looks like your fingerprint is going to be up, and you're just going to push that in and spin it until you can get it to thread in a little bit. So I got it in just a couple threads, enough to hold it. All right, you can see just like that, and that's in there. So what we're going to do then, after we've done that, is we're going to go ahead and, the phone's going crazy here too. Go ahead and just keep threading it in until it gets tight. All right, it's nice and tight now. It's flush. We can't go any more turns. You can see I can't really turn there. So we're going to go ahead and push that in now, and you can see here where we can just keep threading this. You can see that. All right, so now we're at the point that we have to get something in there to hold that. I don't think that the tool that I was following was going to be the best one to use it, so I got an Allen here that's a little bigger. And we'll go ahead and hold it. And you just want to be careful when you're doing this that you don't scratch anything. So we're going to go ahead and just spin this a little bit and set it back in where it goes, and we're just going to check it again. So you want to make sure when you're doing this that the bolt is just basically flush. You can kind of see that right there, and that's where you want to be. Then just push it, make sure that it's going to work for you. You can see that moving there, and you can see the buttons pushing, so you're pretty good with that right at the moment. All right, so next we're going to do our bolt catch, bolt release. So I was missing a part, so I had to stop and go get the part. So I was missing a spring actually in the kit that I had, so luckily I have a couple of parts kits. So we got a little plunger here. We're just going to throw the spring on the plunger like so, and then we're going to set it right down in that hole there. So then we're going to take our catch, and we're going to go ahead and set that in, and we need to just make sure that everything kind of lines up in there. So yeah, it does. So now we're going to take our little pin, so that's just going to sit in there just like that with that in there. So then we're going to go and take our roll pin. Now there's a couple of roll pins in there, and this one takes the smaller of the two. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to stick that in there. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get that almost flush. We're going to take our punch, and we're just going to give it a couple of whacks with the punch. Of course, that rag that he had here apparently had oil on it, so now I've got oil all over my hands. So there you go. So now we've got that in there, and you can see that pin's just flush in there a little less. It's in there just a hair. So we're going to go ahead and just move that and make sure it all kind of moves and works, and everything's good with that. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the safety selector in. And what we do is you put that in here. You can see where it says fire and safe. We're just going to go ahead and set that in, turn it till it goes the way that we want it to. Alright, that's in like that. So then we're going to go ahead and flip it over, and you see a little hole there. And in that hole, we're going to go ahead and put the detent pin in. So with this detent pin, if you can see that, you want the point to go down towards the selector. Alright, so that's in there. Now we're going to take and put the spring into our handle. Got our handle here. And we're just going to take the spring and set that spring into the handle. We're going to go ahead and get our screw with our lock washer. Again, set that in. Like so. If I can get it so that you can kind of see it with the camera. You want to make sure the spring goes right in that hole. You're going to push it in. You're going to hold it right in. And we'll take our screwdriver and get it in the hole again, and just get it threaded in. Like so. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'll try to move it out a little bit. So you just want to make sure that you hold pressure on it so that you don't lose the spring in there that's holding down the detent when you do this. And then go ahead and you can, it's tightening right up. I can feel it snugging the handle right up. We'll just go ahead and make sure that it's tight. And then that's all in and together. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get our buffer tube put in. So you're going to want to take the nut and make sure that the channels are going to go in, and we're going to go ahead and thread that all the way down in the tube, alright? Then we're going to go ahead and take the ring, and you see there's there's a groove there, and that's going to go ahead and put in here. And we want to make sure that the I guess the male end, we'll call it, is going to face towards your receiver. So we'll go ahead and set that in there. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the receiver, and we're just going to thread this in a couple turns, like so, probably 3-4 turns. Okay, that'll give us just enough room. Take it out one more. Just enough room to work in this hole here. So then we're going to take the, I'm going to call it the buffer retainer, which is this, and this spring. We're going to go ahead and stick that together. Then we're going to drop it in there like this. You can see that just sitting in there. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get that pushed down, and we're going to thread the buffer in enough so that it just holds on the outside of that. You can see it holding it right down now, so it won't pop out on us. So that's in there like that. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the buffer, and we're just going to move it past the 1 o'clock mark. All right. So I can't, there's a gray marker. So I like to take this pin and put a little mark on where the detent is. We'll use or where the groove is in there. We'll go ahead and stick a marker and just like so, mark it right there. So now I can kind of see at the bottom of the pin, that's where it is. So we're going to go ahead and slide the pin in, and we want our mark to go towards the rear. So we'll go ahead and get that in. Make sure that you can kind of see, there it is. My gray mark is falling. There's a little, this receiver has a little channel on it, and you can kind of see that that's falling there right there. So then we're going to want to go ahead and we'll take that detent, and you can see there's a hole right here. We're going to let that go down in the hole like so. Then we're going to take the spring here and set that down in there. All right. Now we're going to take this, and we're just going to move that back over, and we're going to set that on there like so, and just make sure you don't pinch the spring when you do it. And then we're going to thread the nut right down on it to hold it like so. So now everything's all lined up. You can see that in there, springs in there, this is all in there, the pin's in there. So then you're going to take, if you have a nut wrench for one of those, and you're just going to tighten that down and give it a turn. So all we're going to do is just make sure that's tight, and then give it a little whack with a hammer or something to make sure that's tight. One thing I did forget to mention when we did the selector is to make sure that your selector does work. All right, so we got all this on there, and there's our stock. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put our spring in, and we're just going to go ahead and slide the spring down like so. Push it all down in there, and then we are going to go ahead and just get it right past our little pin there, if you can see that, and the pin's just going to hold it in there. I like to spin it there so it's not on one of the flat pieces. Now the buffer's in there. So we're going to go ahead and do our trigger now. I'll take that off. Trigger spring. So we got the disconnect spring, and we're going to go ahead and see there's a little notch in there. We're going to put the bigger part of the spring into that little notch, and it'll just sit in there. We're going to go ahead and take the spring, and you want the spring to go like this so that the feet are sticking out and the top piece is sitting here. Then you're just going to go ahead and you're going to weasel that on both sides, one side and then the second side on to the round part, and let that sit there. So next we're going to go ahead and do the hammer and the hammer spring. So you're just going to weasel that on, again, like we did with the last one, and it just kind of spins right around, and we want it just like so. Right, that spring's sitting right on top there. Alright, so now that we got those springs on, we're going to go ahead and take our trigger and our disconnector, and we're just going to set the disconnector on there on the spring and make sure that that all works and sitting in there just right. Then we're going to take our trigger and we're going to go ahead and set that in there, making sure that the rear of it is sitting under the selector. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to set our disconnector back on. If you can see that, right back in there, and set it all down in and make sure that it lines up, the holes do, and you can see all the way through. Like that. You can see all the way through there. Then we're going to go ahead and take one of our pins. We're going to go ahead and stick that pin through. And again, don't be afraid to have a good punch with you, because it's going to make life just a touch easier when you go ahead and go to put that through, so it keeps everything somewhat lined up. Now, it should just follow it through there in sorts, and you're going to have to wiggle it a little bit, but you shouldn't really have to hammer that all right through. And it just slides right in, like so. Shouldn't have to hammer it, shouldn't have to do anything. It should just set right in there, and now you can see it's all working there. Then we're going to go ahead and get the hammer in there, and we're just going to set that in like so. Alright, and what we want to do with that is the rear forks on that, you just want to sit on top of that trigger pin. If you can see, let me get the camera there, see how that goes in there, just like this, and get it set down in there, and get it so that your holes line up. And again, it doesn't hurt to use a good punch just to kind of get that setting in there, so that you can stick your next pin in there, and that should slide right through as well. You know, you just want to make sure that you've got it somewhat close, so you can just follow that through there. And just like the last one we did, you just want to make sure that, you know, if you, oh shit, I just dropped the pin. Let me grab that pin again. You know, just make sure that you're lined up there of sorts. Alright, and you're just going to follow that through there. Hopefully you can kind of see that with me there. And just set that down in there. Pin just right in there now. Like so. Alright, so now we're going to go through and we're just going to set the upper that we have in there on. So we'll go ahead and make sure that that's back down. And go ahead and get our pins out. See, we got our front pin in here. We'll just leave that out like so. And we're just going to take, here's the upper that we're using. If you can see there, we're just going to go ahead and set it in there. In the front, if you can see that like so, we're just going to take our front pin and slide that in. We're going to take the top. Hopefully this is a little better. I'm running out of room here. Just swing this, maybe you can see it like here. And we're going to go ahead and take our rear pin. And it's going to be a little bit tight, but take your rear pin, slide it out like so. Go ahead and set the rear in there, and just stick the pin in. Now, if you're in New York, you know, you want to make sure that what your yours is going to have to be pinned, but anywhere else you're not going to. Our mag that we're going to put in there, we'll have to get those pinned in there so they can't come out. But that pretty much sums it up. So that's pretty much a complete kit, all assembled, ready to go. So that's going to conclude our putting together an AR. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Hopefully it helps out a little bit. I know once in a while I get stuck. YouTube's a great resource to use for things that we can't quite figure out. So hopefully this helps. Again, thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up button for us.